right. We are live. I see everybody starting to fall into the chat. In case you're wondering who I am, my name is Antonio Bryce. I am the creator of the comic book series brand. We have the link to the first 21 pages of our comic book, which has raised over $71,000 on Indiegogo, thanks to the kindness of good folks such as yourself. I have another interview in our creator series here. You may know this book here. This is Bone. This is the collected Bone. I have a link to it. It's on Amazon. It's actually in full color and hardcover now. So I need to upgrade my. This is a big thick book, but I need to get it. 2 awards from the National Cartoonist Society, 11 Harveys, 10 Eisners. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jeff Smith.
How you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic, and it is a thrill to have you here today.
I actually like the black and white one better than the
color.
I mean, that's what I did for 12 years. I was doing the little indie self-published book, and finally collected them all in that big paperback. And it was only like a year after that that Scholastic wanted to do it, and to make it different, we decided to color it. And I know a lot of people like the color better, and we worked really hard on the color, so I feel good about that. But my heart has got to go with black and white. That's what I lived for 12 years.
Well, see, yeah, and I've read a lot of like what Cerebus and Gru the Wanderer and stuff like that, and that's I'm used to seeing the black and white. So I was actually shocked when you started on social media and stuff showing the colored versions of Bone, because it just seemed like you were steadfast. You were not going to color the book, and the colored pages look brilliant.
They're beautiful, but the thing is we still do the black and white and the color. So whichever one you like, you can have. So, but my wife and I still publish that big fat one that you've got there. We still publish that through Cartoon Books, and it's been in continuous print for 15 years now. And we just shipped the 25th printing.
Oh, wow. that's a lot of Bone.
I have not given up on my black and white.
Oh, well, let me because let's rewind. Let's go all the way. What got you into art? Why do you create? What sparked that little fire in you? What made you want to start drawing and stuff?
That's a pretty good question. I mean, when I was a kid, I really loved comics, either comic strips or cartoon TV. And I don't know, I'm just a very simple level. I enjoyed looking at drawings, especially good ones that would move from panel to panel. A weird thing, but I loved Disney animation when I was a kid in the 60s.
Definitely me.
Yeah, I was watching Snow White and Pinocchio and all those movies, and I had this. To me, looking at those hand-drawn animations, it looked like how I dreamed. Like you dream kind of flat and in color, and it kind of crisps out at the edges a little bit, almost like an outline. And so I was just blown away by hand-drawn animation. And the same was true with really good, comic strips or comic books. I just love that outline. So even though I really kind of like art and CGI, if they're good movies, I still prefer hand drawn.
I do as well. I'm a big fan of especially Japanese animation. That is something Miyazaki, all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm into. I love Japanese animation, but all the old Disney hand-drawn stuff, like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lady and the Tramp, that's the stuff that made me want to create. That's oh man, but like I said, especially anything with like robots, Transformers, that kind of stuff. Animation is that does it for me. I was just,
but all of that just spoke to me as a kid, way more than television shows or regular movies or anything. I mean, that was just, to me, I could just launch into those worlds. Peanuts in the comic strips or Bugs Bunny and animation. I knew even very young that I kind of wanted to do it. I didn't really understand that it was a real job. But, there's just something about that worked for me. See, I was a kid. I remember when the first Peanuts holiday special came out.
Yes.
And I was very aware that Snoopy and Charlie Brown were made up by a man named Charles Schulz. And the same with Mickey and Donald were made up by Walt Disney. So I kind of knew that these age 5, are you still there? I lost you for a second.
Yes, yeah. I was like, whoa, what happened? I was like, I was like, oh, yeah, you're here. Okay, thank God. I was like, oh no. But
so good. Anyway, when I was about 5, I started thinking I want to make up a character like Walt Disney did or like Charles Schulz did. And when I came up with the Bone character, like around age 5. And I wrote little stories. They were not very original, but they were like what I saw in Donald Duck comics and things like that. And it was just a escape. I mean, I just loved being in that world. Whether I was reading a comic book, or whether I was drawing very bad ones when I was young, I just loved everything.
Well, Bone to me, it is. I enjoyed reading Bone so much. And I used to see you when Wizard magazine was still a thing, and you'd always be in like top 10 artists or whatever. You were pretty much every month. It'd say like Just Smith. It would be like you, Todd McFarlane.
I never understood it in that list, but I was happy it helped,
Yeah.
sales.
And you went to a lot of cons though, right? Or was it?
Yeah, in the early days, up until even very recently, I went to many shows a year. Very quickly, like in the mid '90s, I started traveling to Europe and all over the world. So if I wasn't at my desk drawing comics, I was out promoting. It was very, very much not just a full-time job, but a lifestyle. Speaking of Wizard magazine, Bone #1 shipped the same week as Wizard #1. Nobody noticed at the time except me.
Well, the thing is with Bone, I kept seeing Bone being promoted in Wizard, but when I would go to the comic shop, it was always sold out, or it was in like a 4th or 5th printing. I guess you were doing it was I guess around the 20s or so, you actually hopped over to Image for a little while, and then you went back to. So, I mean, what happened there? Because I remember I started buying. I was like, oh, he's doing Image now. So I was like, I was able to start getting the books more frequently.
Well, there was real turmoil in the industry. The distributors, starting with Marvel, were being purchased. I'm sorry, I said that a weird way. Marvel decided to buy the #3 distributor. I can't remember what their name was now. I can't remember what it was. They 15 distributors. Now there's only 9. But there were like 15 of them. And they bought the #3 one. And everybody panicked because Marvel had all these rules on it. You had to buy every one of their comics, and a certain number of them, or you couldn't get any Marvel comics, which meant nobody was going to have money left over for Dark Horse, let alone a little punk like me. And at the same time, I had blown up earlier. I mean, gotten more popular. And I was selling directly to retailers and to anybody who wanted it. I would sell it to them through the mail or whatever. But a lot of the retailers who I was working with directly owed me a lot of money. And there were other distributors that went out of business overnight. I mean, it was like, it was a catastrophe that this happened. And well, I was going to go out of business, but I was friends with the Image guys because we shared some ideas in common, like we wanted to own the company that published our own work, and control our own work. So I just called them up one day and I said, can I work through you guys? I mean, they didn't publish me. I still published myself. but it was almost like I put the little eye on the corner because, yeah, they don't need me, but they still need image. I'm talking about the retailers. So the retailers, so I made it. I only needed to be there about a year, but I was able to survive through that.
And then, so what made you like decide, okay, I've been here long enough, and then go back to self-publishing completely?
I just think I think that the industry had stabilized enough, and I would do another trade book, I think, and I had not released any of my graphic novels because I knew I wanted to. I knew I was going back out, so I wanted to keep that. So I think that's what it was. I think I was ready to start another round of that, and they were cool about it. I mean, I had a great relationship.
Oh yeah, I'm certain. And in addition to this, I own about 6 or 7 of the graphic, because I bought this well after. Once you put the whole thing out, I was like, yes. And so because I was just buying them in doses. But I've noticed that seems to be the standard now in the industry. They'll release like 5 issues, and then they'll release the paperback of 5 issues, that kind of thing. And you were like definitely one of the first that I collected like that.
I was definitely one of the very first to do that. And it was, I mean, I used to get together with my self-publishing buddies like Dave Sim and Colleen Doran and Larry Martyr, and he's the guy that did Bean World, and a whole bunch of other guys. And all we did was talk about comics all day, all night. We'd go to some show. It might be a retailer convention, or it might go Comic-Con. And we just talk comics all day and all night. We'd go to somebody's hotel room at night, still talk about comics. And one of the things we talked about was trying to change of how comic books were sold. And I've told this story before, so stop me if this is too boring.
Please.
Or too inside baseball. Actually, you probably like inside baseball. Back then, in the 90s and in the 80s, of course, comics were sold like magazines. They just a new issue of Bone would go up on the shelf, or Spider-Man, and it was there for 4 weeks. And then when the new issue of Spider-Man came out, the old issue of Spider-Man came out of the rack, went into a plastic bag, and into the what do you call it, the back issue bin.
Absolutely.
And never to be seen again unless somebody collector wanted to buy it. Well, most of the people I was hanging out with, we were working on these stories, that were these were our own, and we had ideas for how the stories would end. And so I didn't want my issue 1 to go out, to not be available, to read the story. So if somebody jumps in on issue 12 and they can't read number 1, that didn't really work for me or my friends either. So we were trying to talk the retailers into stocking these graphic novels. Don't think of them as a magazine, like they got to go away to make room for the new one. Think of them as like a hammer in a hardware store. If you sell your last hammer, then get a new hammer, restock your hammers and put them back out there. And we would have pizza parties at all these comic book events, invite retailers. We had an awful lot of fun. But the idea was, this is a new profit center. This is a new idea. I mean, graphic novels had already existed for a few years at that point, but they weren't standard. You didn't just stock them. You didn't keep them in stock. If you got, a Sandman graphic novel or a Bone graphic novel, you're just so grateful if you got rid of the 3 of them that you had, or whatever the retailers were. But we wanted to say, restock them. Think of this as like a real bookstore, or like any kind of a retail or a music shop. If you sell out of the White Album, you don't say, oh, well, if you want to hear the White Album, you got to pay $7,000 to buy the first printing of it, right? You keep it in stock. So that was like what our whole life revolved around. That and self-publishing, which was big for us. But I don't remember what we were talking about.
You just answered my question perfectly. And let's see, I've got Libby Lightyear in the chat, and I don't know, he or she says, my first introduction to Bone was when the Cartoonist was made and aired on PBS.
Right. Oh my goodness.
How long ago was that? That's been a minute ago. Yeah.
Well, what it was there was the production company in town. And before I started the comic book, I actually owned an animation studio, and I had a couple of partners, and we would do commercials there was a lot of corporate headquarters in Columbus. So we would do commercials for White Castles and McDonald's or Warner Cable or whatever. And then we got into doing little bits of feature films, which was a lot of fun. But we partnered up with this other production house, Mills James, and they were very kind to us. They liked the idea of having animators as part of around for their productions. So they let us use their phones and their copiers and gave us a little office space for a long time to help us get started. Well, then eventually I moved on to comics, but the Ken Mills, who owned that production company, just thought that was a fantastic story, that I gave up a successful animation business to do black and white underground comics for no money. And he just decided to do a documentary. And it was, the Robert Crumb documentary just come out, and it was.
I love that. I love the Crumb documentary. It was fantastic.
But I do not want to make a documentary like. I do not want you to follow me around and expose how horrible and creepy I am. So, but he said, no, this isn't that kind of thing. This is more like a feature, and it's for PBS, during the fundraiser and all that.
Yeah, no.
So I forget how long it was, about a year. He came back and interviewed me and my, Vijaya, my wife, my partner, and our staff, Kathleen and Tom and Steve, about 3 or 4 times. And sometimes they'd interview me down at Old Man's Cave, and they would talk to other cartoonists. It was kind of fun. It was what it was.
Oh yeah, but let me see. Anakin Kanuyak. I hope I said. I remember he's been in my chat a few times. Let me see. He says, "Howdy. My oldest son got me the Bone 1-volume edition for my birthday last year, and as I previously mentioned, that is the link to that. There is a hardcover edition that looks fantastic. It is in full color and it is available on Amazon. The link is in the description, as well as a few links to Jeff's social media. So yeah, that is the Bone 1-volume is fantastic. Obviously, I own a copy and it is highly recommended.
Good, thanks, man. Yeah, the 1-volume in color. It's like a slipcase hardcover.
Yeah, I saw that.
Published by Vijaya and I. Scholastic publishes they kind of took over the 9 volumes.
And then, wait a minute. We have, hold up. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, my screen. Can you guys still see me? Jeff? Uh-oh. Did I lose Jeff? Uh-oh. It looks like we lost Jeff. Hold up. It's like, yeah, okay, because I see my screen is moving. All right, but let me see. I was trying to, we might be having some technical difficulties on Jeff's end because I can, oh man, that's not good. Okay. Hopefully we can get Jeff back. I see John Malin in the chat. Hello, John Malin. Graveyard Shift Volume 2 is on Indiegogo right now. No. Uh-oh. Wait a minute. Aha. Okay, hold up.
All right, there's me.
Let me see. Let me remove the other one. Aha. We still got, okay.
We're back.
Yes. All right. I don't know I was like, wait a minute, because normally when it freezes on me, I see the circle and I go, wait a minute, I'm still moving. Jeff was like,
my internet connection.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, okay. But fortunately, that's one thing I do like about StreamYard. Unlike Hangout, sometimes when you would have these type of problems, you would lose the entire stream. Whereas this happened, and I still was able to keep going, and then you pop back in. So I was like, StreamYard. But let me see. We were talking. Well, actually, I wanna ask you, because Bo, because I want to. Some people are asking about Rasl and the new project Tuki as well. But I want to talk. I want to talk about Bone. What? How did that idea come up? Because it's so deep. It looks like you just. I don't know if you just started writing or did you take some time and create everything, or it's like the world is so deep. It's like those characters feel very real. It feels like a very real place to me.
Oh, cool. It takes me a long time to kind of develop an idea, like years. I made up to Bone Cousins when I was a little kid, but I didn't have a story or any plan like that. It was in 1982, I went to the Ohio State University, and I started doing kind of a proto Bone comic strip in there every day, 5 days a week for like 4 years. And it was okay. I mean, some people thought it was funny. Some people wondered why I thought I was a cartoonist. So I did that, but I love the characters, and I started.
Uh-oh.
Things are, oh, come on, don't do that. I'm back. Okay.
Good.
Or the Odyssey, the Iliad. I was real big fans of that. Moby Dick. And
that's where I was going. Okay.
So between like 1985, whenever I got out of school, to 1991, I owned an animation studio. But the whole time in the back of my head, I was kind of working out, where am I going with this story? What's a story that'd be worth telling? I had the idea of the 3 Bone Cousins being fish out of water, right? They're like us, like Duckburg. And all the humans are like the fantasy fairy tale world with dragons and monsters and princesses. I had all that idea. I didn't have a story. And I had to work out a story. And it took me years to do it. And finally, so that was like what? It was like 6 years. And then when I finally had a story, I worked backwards from the ending and kind of rewrote it backwards. And then I started it. And that was in 1991. So that was about 6 years for Bone. Then Rasl was an idea I first kind of came up with in like 2000. And just puttered around with it, was thinking about it. Bone was reaching its climax. And in fact, I was starting to be more interested in Rasl than I was in Bone. But I was like, you got to stay focused, man. You got to stay focused. You got to finish this. But whenever I work on Rasl, I felt like I was like having an affair or something. So I was working on it. And I finished Bone in 2004. Which is when I first put out the first collected 1-volume edition. And it was but Rasl wasn't ready yet. I wasn't ready. I didn't quite have the whole story together yet. And that's when I got contacted by DC Comics. Mike Carlin was the editor-in-chief at that time. He wanted me to do a Shazam story. So that was perfect because I wasn't ready to do Rasl yet. And besides having just finished Bone, which was this huge thing in my head, to get it out of my head, and then everything I drew looked like Bone for like 6 months. So being able to work on Shazam that was good for me. I was able to take a couple of years and do that. And by the time I finished Shazam, I had Rasl down. I knew who the bad guys were. I'd actually gone out to the Arizona desert and spent a couple weeks just surrounded by a saguaro cacti, and I just came up with the whole noir like, triangle of the hero and the femme fatale and the bad guy, and Tesla. Throwing Tesla in there because that was a piece I didn't have. It was like, well, if it's the Maltese Falcon, what's the Maltese Falcon that everybody's after? And there's all these conspiracy theories that Tesla's secret journals disappeared the night he died. He died the night before he was supposed to have a meeting at the White House to discuss his famous death ray that was supposed to shoot, an entire platoon of planes out of the sky at once. This is during World War II. And I was like, holy cow! Because part of the rumor was that the government went into his apartment, took all his paperwork. They didn't have Area 51 yet because this is only like during World War II in the 40s. They took all his papers to Wright Pat, which is right here in Dayton. And I've been to that. There's an Air Force museum there and stuff. And I was like, that's it. Rasl will go to Right Pat because supposedly the aliens from Area 51 were stored there until Area 51 was set up. It's like he'll be an alien conspiracy freak. He'll go there to see if he can get in to see the aliens, and somebody's going to slip him this package, this old package covered with ratty newspaper and twine, and then he'll open it up and it'll be Tesla's journal, which will give him the secret to traveling back and forth between parallel universes. Okay, that sounded pretty strange.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. I just started about 3 years ago. I started seeing some of the Rasl stuff because I had gotten out of comics for a little while, and then once I started going on Amazon and buying, collected editions and getting back into it and just reading everything I could get my hands on, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh, Jeff Smith has created something else." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, so I saw that, and I also saw, because I was glad you mentioned the Shazam and the Monster Society of Evil. That is a collected edition. Matter of fact, I have a list. There's an Amazon list in the description here on there that's called the Dollar Bin, and it has a bunch of cool comics on it from different creators. Obviously, Jeff Smith is on there, Chris Claremont, Steve Englehart, Neil Gaiman, Alan Moore, just pretty much anybody that I soaked up from, that I was a big fan of, so the Dollar Bin on Amazon, the link is in the description here. Jeff, that's one thing I wanted to ask you. I've noticed that you are referred more to, and I think you tend to refer to yourself as more of as a cartoonist as opposed to a comic book, artist or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You seem more like you would have fit in the 30s or 40s, right along Charles Schultz, doing those strips and everything. Is that on purpose or?
Yeah, I my first love was comic strips growing up. It was pretty close between comic books and comic strips, but Peanuts and Pogo were the two strips that just meant the world to me. There was real interior stuff going on with the Peanuts and with the Pogo crowd. I mean, you could see these characters thinking. I mean, most comic strips are like, Blondie or Garfield, and they're just a gag, right? And they're funny, but they're just a gag. There's nothing really going on in there. But with Peanuts and Pogo, these were real characters that had all sorts of complicated, nuanced angles and facets to their personalities. And I was always fascinated by that. I would have loved to have done that. In fact, I tried to sell Bone as a syndicated comic strip, but no one thought it was any good. They didn't think they should look.
Didn't think it was any good?
Oh no, yeah, no. I mean, I got like 2 rejection letters from everybody, from all the syndicates. They either thought that the bones shouldn't be with the humans, just do the bones in Boneville, and that would be it.
Or make it more wonky, more cartoony.
Yeah, just make the bones and make them, just silly. I don't know. And the other thing was that I was telling a story. By that time, I had this idea that I wanted to do a big story that actually had an ending. And I thought, I'll do the comic strip for 15 years or whatever, and then I'll come to an end. And they were like, no, you're not doing that. So, and I said, continuity strips are out. So as around that time, that I think Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns. Mouse came out.
Yes.
Watchmen, I think all pretty much in the same year, the same 18-month period. You had those 3 books, and it knocked me for a loop. And it got me into comic book stores because they were actually being talked about, like in the newspaper and on TV. They're talking about these books, and I'm like, they're talking about comic books in the newspaper? What? So I went to the local comic book shop, and I discovered the Hernandez brothers, Peter Bagg, Ben Edlund was doing the Tick, Cerebus was with him, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, here is something. And I was particularly interested in Dave's ethos on self-publishing, something that he took too far. We don't have to do that. But I was like, okay, screw the syndicates. If they don't want Bone, that's fine. I'll do it myself. And that's when I told my wife I wanted to sell my business so I could do an underground black and white comic book.
And it sounds like that didn't work out too well for you, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, we're gonna do some fundraising for you, Jeff. Hopefully, we can get you back on your feet there, brother.
Kickstarter.
Yeah. But let me see. I've got some comments in the chat. Let's see. Adam Post said Jeff Smith is a super indie creator from way back. Great to see him here. I'm very happy that he showed up here today as well. Let's see. Metatron's Q says Pogo has really good inking. Let me see here.
Not just good inking, the best inking. I mean, his thicks and thins are unbelievable. And I learned how to make one line look like it goes behind another line, even though it doesn't because it's two-dimensional, from Walt Kelly's ink and brush work. In fact, to this day, I use ink and a brush because of Walt Kelly. And, the younger people that I work with always want me to try to ink on the Cintiq or something. I can't. It's too late for me.
Well, that's one thing I like when I look on your social media. You're actually still old school. There's so many people doing the digital stuff now, including my brilliant artist Kanan White, that is the artist for my comic book brand. He is a digital guy and extraordinarily talented. But man, it is. I love seeing a pencil being put to paper, and then especially if you're a good inker as well, and you can ink over there. I like the way the paper feels in my hand. I like the way it smells. I love watching different people because I've watched on Doug to Naples channel. He's doing the Earthworm Jim pages for his Indiegogo. He's doing those live on the air, and he's
on him live. I mean, he's actually drawing them while you're watching.
Yeah. He'll do like a 3-hour stream, and it's cool.
That is awesome. That is unbelievable. Dave Sim and I used to joke that there's no live comic books. I mean, it's not like a sporting event where you go watch a game or anything. It's like people aren't watching you. And I can't say that anymore. Doug to Naples is doing it. So,
yeah, and the book's like 160 pages, I think, or 160, 168, something like that. He's fast.
He is fast.
Yeah, and he's doing like ink washes on them and everything. It's great.
Tuki is good. I did an online thing called Tuki for a while, and I started it right as soon as I finished Rasl. I thought, well, I got this comic book thing down now. I can just get there and whip out a comic book. And I was posting pages online, and I did it, sporadically for about 2 or 3 years. And I realized, both Rasl and Bone, I had taken the time to really develop the story before I started. And I didn't do that with Tuki. So I put the webpage on hiatus, took the pages I had. There were some good drawings in there, so I didn't want to start over completely, but I knew I had gotten to know the characters and the world that they were in, and I kind of figured out more about what the story was about and what all the characters' motivations were. And suddenly I felt this kind of deep connection to the world. Tuki, if you've never seen it, and you probably haven't.
I have.
It takes place 2 million years ago. And it's a real period in our species history when multiple species of humans existed at the same time. Evolution is not like the neat little bumper sticker where the primates stand up slowly. It was real messy and happening all over the place. It was real scattershot. And at 2 million years ago, there was a moment when something like 8 different human species were alive at the same time. Australopithecus, which was Lucy, and Homo habilis, and our direct forebear, Homo erectus, and so that's amazing to me. I think that's a place for a story to happen. But this is a really cool part. Only one species came out of that moment, and that was the one who controlled fire and cooked and ate cooked food. And I'm like, okay, that's a graphic novel. So anyway, that's what the story is about. And I didn't really even realize that when I was doing it as a webcomic. So I pulled it back, and I'm now going to do it as 3 200-page graphic novels.
3 200-page graphic. That's a lot
of
book.
I know. That's like a short story for me.
Any plans on doing any crowdfunding or anything? Kickstarter, Indiegogo?
No. I'm going to try to just make it on, just try to get the sales out there. Bone's been very kind to me, so it gives me a little cushion there to deal with. I wish there'd been like a movie or something. I don't have that. I don't have those Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles money. But for being a comic book and a book that's sold around the world, it's done very well.
How many different? Because I've seen that Bone is very international. How many different languages have you had this translated into?
33, 34.
Oh my God! I should know this.
We don't know. It's like it's in the mid-30s, I think.
Yeah, I was like, I've seen different languages with the letter boxes and stuff. And I was like, I
love that. My favorite ones are like the Russian one, and the Hebrew is an excellent cover, and also they read it like the Japanese, front to back to front, and it's very fun to see my characters, speaking Hebrew or even French and Russian, for heaven's sakes, Finnish. It's really cool.
Okay.
And it was really fun for Vijay and I to travel for many, many years and go to comic book conventions all over the world. And we're so exactly the same. Every comic book geek is the same, whether they're in Norway or Finland, or India, for heaven's sakes. We are all exactly the same. We're a bunch of good-hearted geeks, is what it is.
Right. Well, Peephole Circus, and I happen to know Peephole Circus is in the UK there, and he goes, where's the Welsh version of Bone? Where's the Welsh version?
That's a good question. I'm actually part Welsh. My mother's side is Welsh.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe one day. And I see some people in the chat saying to please do like a crowdfund, like on Indiegogo for Bone or anything. Because I'm sure your fans will shower you with money. I know I will definitely support anything that I see your name on. So.
Well, thanks, guys. If I come up with something really worthwhile, I'll let you know.
Yeah. Well, please. All right. Let's see. John Malin, the great John Malin is in the chat. John Malin, former Image and Marvel Comics artist, and he has a book on Indiegogo right now called Graveyard Shift Volume 2. And I just had John on about 10 days ago, and he is over $90,000 on Indiegogo, so he's killing the game. I need to catch up to you, John.
Maybe I need to rethink my strategy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can assure you, like I said, my book is over $71,000, and I am over 2,200 backers, and just you give them a little something different than just buying it at the store or at Amazon. You can autograph them, you can offer them special limited prints and all this. I think the crowdfunding just gives you a way to interface with your fans in a different way.
I had not thought of it that way. I will give that some thought. Thank you.
If you do, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to shill it for you. Let's see. Cam 1138 says Jeff could hit 500,000 no problem, and maybe 750. I believe that just based on the success that Doug Tenapo has had with the Earthworm Jim project, over $760,000 raised. It is the largest comic ever crowdfunded on Indiegogo, and I mean, yeah.
like that's $750,000. That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's doing all right. And I'm just happy that if I send him a text message, he will answer me back. And but yeah, again, Doug wanted me to wish you well here, and he's a big fan. So that is amazing, But I honestly think a collected edition of Bone or any of that, you would, you could do like a variant cover. I mean, there's just so many different possibilities. I was just Bone, like I said, you got a couple of Rasl fans in the chat too.
Yeah,
but Bone.
When you meet a Tesla fan, yeah, they're wired.
Yeah, that was like.
You go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said I use the term cartoonist to describe myself. And when I think of cartoonist, I don't think it necessarily means you draw a certain kind of way. I think that the definition I use of cartoonist is that I'm someone who writes and draws. You know what I mean? So, like Charles Schultz is a cartoonist because he wrote and drew. Dan Klaus or Jaime Hernandez, they're cartoonists. They write and draw. And I believe they would consider themselves that as well. And then a comic book artist is someone who draws comic book, and there's a comic book writer. But if you write and draw the comic book, you're a cartoonist. That's a definition the way I've always understood it.
Yeah, I'm definitely just the writer. I wish I could draw, but it'll look like stick figures.
That's just right. There's a full-time job being a writer or an artist. It's just this. There's just some of us that are wired a little. We're Welsh, so we like to write in and be a little weird.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, because it's a similar question that I asked Dr. Nabel when he was here a few months ago. Your projects are all different. It's like Bone is different from Rasl as Rasl is from Tuki. It's so what I don't.
Well, Doug's are too, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was the thing. He had so many different. He's got like 19 graphic novels, and they're all. Every idea is different. He has reoccurring themes, but they're, But that's why I was like, what? You just seem just from talking to you have so many different interests. So it's. I always wonder. I want to pick you guys' brains and see what inspires you to create.
It's generally. I'm very interested in. I love fantasy. I love hard-boiled, noir, and what am I working on now? Is like a boy's adventure story. It's like a Conan or Tarzan. It's like an adventure story from like the 30s comics, except it's paleoanthropology in it. Real stuff, real data that I'm working on. So like at the end of Bone, being near it, I was watching a lot of film noir. I was watching Alfred Hitchcock. I was watching The Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep, and a bunch of those famous movies from the 40s and 50s. And I was just really into the genre, and I began to get interested in how does the genre work and what are the rules. And okay, I see these kinds of things. Shadows are always cutting, people's faces diagonally, behind them. Just little tropes that I got interested in, and I've always been kind of interested in that. I also would have been watching movies, and decided I want to try to come up with a story that fits all that. But of course, I can't just do a straight detective story. I have to throw Tesla and parallel universes into it, so it's got science fiction elements, and of course, the way my brain works, I don't just say you can go parallel universes. I spent like 2 years trying to understand string theory, and there is an element of string theory that leads to parallel universes, and I found a connection between string theory and this parallel universe. It's a very tiny, coiled up, teeny tiny little extra dimension. And a theory of everything that Albert Einstein wrote in like 26, that he abandoned. And the reason he abandoned it is because he couldn't make it work unless he put a little placeholder in there to just get the equation to finish. And what he put in there was a little tiny curled up dimension as the placeholder. And I'm like, Einstein and Tesla hated each other. What if Tesla had discovered the string theory or a version of it earlier, and that was what was in his secret journals that he wouldn't show anyone. And he discovered the same thing that Einstein did. Both rejected it. But Rasl actually uses it and puts it to work in a machine that he builds. Okay, if I put you to sleep, I feel like I really blathered you.
No. The chat is into this. Actually, the audience is growing. And let's see, Chauncey Blakey, he asks, he says, Antonio, can you ask Jeff what role as a cartoonist does he feel he has in society?
Well, a cartoonist is a commenter on society. The most plain, straightforward one is the editorial cartoonist. Many of whom are losing their jobs now because they're doing a really good job and they're getting fired for it. Cartooning is it's a boiling down of an idea or a visual to its essence. Just boil off everything that you don't need, and that's when you get that iconic, the look of a cartoon. And Bone was as far down as I could boil a little character. The same is true for like ideas. There are ideas in Bone, like the Dragon Slayer. Phony Bone kind of takes over this little medieval village and scares them to death about dragons that are going to come into the village and take them over, even though there's never been a dragon in their village. They're pretty soon they're like paying him to help keep these dragons out. So they build a wall around the village. And also he's one of the richest bones in Boneville. I was doing 20 years before.
But let me see here. RBT asks in the chat, says, curious how involved Jeff is with the color art since both Bone and Rasl were originally conceived in black and white.
True. I was very involved. In both Rasl and Bone, they were done by Steve Hammaker, who is a very good cartoonist. But I met him because he worked at a toy company here in Ohio called Restoris, and he was the lead on a set of Bone toys, and they were beautiful. They really good. I think I have one of them right here.
Oh.
This is so there's Phone Bone.
Yes. And
he's got his little hat from when he was in the winter, and he's got a little backpack that actually has a little copy of Moby Dick. You can actually take the Moby Dick book out, and it says "Call me Ishmael." Anyway, after they did these toys, we hired him to come and work with us, and he was doing all sorts of art direction, anything that wasn't the comics, any art that was needed for ads or putting the books together, he would do it. And when we got an opportunity to color it, Scholastic wanted to color the books. He said, "Let me take a shot at it." So he and I learned how to color together, and he did all the heavy lifting. The color is definitely his palette. But I worked on it. I went through every single panel, and generally my thing was storytelling changes that I would suggest. Like, I would like to have a lighter spot, like say this wall behind me. I might put a lighter spot, like right where my hand is, that would draw your attention to the face of the character. And I'm sorry, I keep looking down at the screen. It's really hard to remember the cameras up there. I apologize. That's the thing I would do. I would change the colors or the brightness. If the colors were key, I knew where I wanted your eye to go because I did it in black and white. Right? Your eye's supposed to go from here on the one panel to here on the other panel. And if there was colors that were distracting you, I would mute them or change it. And that's about all I did. Most of the color work was done by him, but I approved every single panel is the answer to the question. And when he did Rasl, I did not know if it was going to be in black and white. I had intended to do it in black and white as a 1-volume edition, but he said, why not do it in color? He said, skip the black and white 1-volume edition, go right to color. It'll excite people. And I said, okay, but you can't do the same kind of color we did in Bone, because Bone is, it's light, it's a comedy. This is got to be dark. This is noir. So he kept coming up with palettes that were almost there, but they weren't quite. I wasn't sold on it. 3 months before we had to send it to the printer in order to have it come out in time for San Diego. He came up with a palette that knocked my boots off. It was smoky and dark, and it brought the whole thing to life. And he colored 500 pages in 3 months. It was breakneck speed. And again, I went over every panel, but I'll tell you, that is the best coloring job I've seen in an American comic book, bar none.
Well, yeah, the pages that I've seen are beautifully colored, and I am I know my colorist would tell you that I am quite anal about how certain colors look and how they pop off the page as we are getting these print files ready for our campaign. Can you tell me about Cartoon Crossroads Columbus?
Yes, I certainly can. In about 4 years ago, we really started 5 years ago. There was a festival in Columbus, going back to the 80s, that was run by the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library on the OSU campus. The original curator was this woman named Lucy Caswell, and I met her like in the early 80s when she was just starting this collection. She already had some Pogos and some Charles Schulz, with all of Milton Caniff's Terry the Pirates and Steve Canyon originals. And I was just like, on my lunch hour, I would go to the first floor of the journalism building where she had this little room. She only had one helper back then. And she recognized that I was really into this and I was not I knew what I was doing. And she let me dig through boxes. And, I'm holding original artwork from Charles Schulz and Milton Caniff and Crazy Cat. I was holding George Harriman. Oh my God. So, which if you hold it to the light sideways and let the light hit the original artwork of a Crazy Cat, he didn't use whiteout. He used a knife or a razor blade and scraped shit up and then painted over. So you hold it up to the light like that, and it's like a little topographical map, little mountain ranges all over. It's gorgeous. I just want to rub my hand on it and kind of get some of that juju off of there. So that was wonderful. She put on a festival every 3 years called the Triannual Festival of Cartoon Art. And its main focus was newspaper comic strips and political cartoons, because that's what was happening in the 80s. But I used to go because she would get Bill Watterson to come out. She would have, like Sergio Aragones from Mad Magazine. And
yes.
Which is where I met him. She got Spiegelman to come out when Mouse first came out. That's where I met him. So it was this lovely, lovely thing that happened every 3 years. The comics creators, the cartoonists, loved Lucy. And so it was just a beloved institution that went on until about 5 years ago. She was about to retire. And she came to Vijayana, my wife, and said, I'm going to retire. And I'm not sure that the people are going to go on with me, who are wonderful, by the way. Jenny Robb, Caitlin McGurk are primo. They know exactly what they're doing. It's great. I'm so happy that they're there. But they weren't really sure they wanted to keep this festival going. So Lucy said, if you could think of some reason or something how we can make this keep going, we'd like to hear it. So Vijay and I thought about it. And sorry, I'm dragging this out. I'll shorten it up. Around Columbus,
eating it up.
Around Columbus, all the art institutions were already digging comics. The Columbus Museum of Art was the first in the United States to show all 300 pages of Crumb's Genesis, the original art, in sequence around 5 galleries around all the walls. Amazing. The Columbus College of Art and Design was bringing in Art Spiegelman and Marjan Satrapi, and Lucy had been bringing in, all these cartoonists, Alfred Bechtel and Art Spiegelman, and the Wexner Center for the Arts, which is sort of like a cutting-edge art museum, was bringing in Dan Klaus and Harvey Picard. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, American Splendor, yes.
Yes. So I'm sitting here thinking, there's like there's Thurber House, James Thurber's from Columbus. I'm thinking we've got 5 or 6 institutions that are already into comics. I'm not trying to talk them into it. They're already doing it. Once a year, they're bringing in a big name. So that was Vijay's and my idea. We said to Lucy, let's go to each one of these institutions, and they all are kind of competitive with each other. We said, but let's see if we can talk them into all bringing the guests in on the same weekend. And then we can make Columbus a destination. And that was part 1. Part 2 was all the festivals that I really liked in Europe were the ones that included the town as a character in the festival. Lucca in Italy, TCAF in Toronto. There's many, many more. Where you don't just go into a convention center or a church basement. You go all over the city, and you go to see an exhibit over here on campus. And on your way to the downtown library, you stop and have lunch and a glass of wine and talk about comics with your friends, and then move on to the next venue. This is our 5th year. This year, we have so many big names, I can't name them all. But we've got Mike Mignola's coming out.
Yes.
I'm super excited. I'm going to actually interview him on stage.
Ooh. Are you filming any of this? Is this going to be on your YouTube or anything?
What's that?
Is it going to be on your YouTube? Or are you going to be filming any of this?
I won't be filming it, but I don't know if this is the year we're going to be filming. We're filming certain events, and I'm sure this is one of them. This is like a big thing. Like there's a board now and stuff. I don't even know everything that's going on anymore. In the early days, I drew all the posters and everything, or put them together. Anyway, we've also got Dave Pilkey, who does Dogman and Captain Underpants, who's like the biggest selling cartoonist in the universe right now. He'll be out Friday night. I don't know if the whole schedule is up on the website, but there is a website called cartooncrossroadscolumbus.com.
Oh,
that's Cartoon Crossroads Columbus. Kathleen, is the schedule up? She's
yet.
looking real quick. I don't know if we've actually posted the whole schedule because it's not so. It's not for 2 or 3 months.
There's some of the guests.
So we've got Jaime Hernandez is coming. Patrick McDonald, who does Mutts. Terry Moore, who does Strangers in Paradise.
Oh man!
And that's just all my generation, right? There's just tons of younger people. We have tracks that cover LGBTQ. We have indie. It's turned out to be a really, really good show. We have Saturday and Sunday. There's a comics expo like you would see at SBX. Thursday and Friday are on campus, and there's great guest speakers and talks. And every night we have some kind of a party sponsored by one of the visiting cartoonists at a local bar. It's a blast.
It sounds like I need to make a trip to that. That sounds really.
Where are you? What state are you?
I'm in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Right, I'm in the volunteer state. Yeah, I'm not there. Yeah, you're not that far. That's why I was like, I need to
hop over Kentucky and head on up 71. We'll see you.
And one of my mods just dropped the link to the cartoon crossroadscolumbus.com in the chat. That is fantastic. I could talk to you all day. I know you got to go. I just wanted to ask you right quick. You mentioned Sergio Aragones. Mad Magazine is closing after like 60 some odd years. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm heartbroken, of course. Mad shaped so many of us.
Definitely me.
Cartoonists for sure, but the whole culture. I mean, obviously Saturday Night Live, The Onion, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I mean, all of that is straight out of the pages of Mad Magazine, teaching us to, question authority and don't trust advertisers on Madison Avenue. I mean, that is what they taught us. So having said that, yes, I'm heartbroken.
Yes.
Most of the usual gang of idiots is gone. There's very few of them are still working anymore. Sergio, of course, is. I think Jackie might occasionally add a fold in. That everything has its time. But even though we're going to say goodbye to Mad, it'll still be around in reprints, and its legacy is supreme.
Definitely agree with that. Jeff Smith, thank you so very much for coming here today. It is an honor to speak to you, sir. I cannot thank you to everyone in the chat for coming. I want to remind everyone on August the 11th, this coming Sunday, I have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ethan Van Sciver. He will be live on this channel. So please come back and join us on August the 11th. But with that being said, I'm going to wrap this video up. And if you guys want to reach out to me, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and right here on this YouTube channel, everywhere is at Ikari Press. And if you type in IkariPress.com, it will take you directly to my Indiegogo campaign for my comic book series brand with the phenomenal Kanan White. We're on Teespring. We're on Amazon.com. The links to those are in the description. My thanks to Jeff Smith for being here today.
Pleasure talking to you, Antonio.
Thank you.
Peace.